Hello everyone and welcome back to the Pink Floyd album ranking saga. You can see we're in the top 3 now, and I have a very appropriate shirt on here for the top 3. Ironically, I think this is more of a Dark Side shirt, but whatever. At number 3, we have, and again, any of these top 5 albums could really be number 1. This one should be number 1. I really could have put this as number 1. But there are 2 other albums that I equally love as number 1. And of course, I am talking about number 3, the infamous, the amazing, the wonderful Piper at the Gates of Dawn. That's right, the album that started it all in 1967. I actually have 2 copies of this album here. Reason being, I have the UK version and the US version, which are slightly different, and we're definitely going to talk about that. You can tell, I don't know if you can see by the cover, condition or whatever, but my US release version is the first pressing. This is not a first pressing. It's a slightly later pressing, which is why it's, you know, better conditioned, slightly thinner cover. But let's talk about them. My God, I don't know where to start with this. I think we first have to talk about the cover, which I love the cover of this album, and I think the story was that whoever it was that designed it wanted the members to wear the brightest clothes possible, so they made this awesome cover here, which you can see features multiples of everyone. You've got Nick Mason over here on the left, you have Roger Waters up on the top left, you have Rick Wright on the bottom right, and of course you have none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Syd Barrett, right there in the middle. And I think that's a great place to start. Syd Barrett, we have to talk about him. He is really, I think, someone in the Pink Floyd world that people love or hate. I don't know if there's an in-between. I love it, and I think you can tell by my listing of the albums, and especially having this so high, I love Syd Barrett. He, to me, is what made Pink Floyd Pink Floyd. I know Dark Side, I know The Wall, I know Wish You Were Here, I know all of those are absolutely phenomenal, but you would not have those without this album. And the fact that Syd Barrett really was just a 1-ish year time span, and we are hyper obsessed with him all these years later, I think really shows what kind of magic he had. So this album came out in 1967. It was released in the UK and then in the US with slightly different versions. The UK version was mono originally, and the US version was stereo, which is why this one says stereo on it. So, of course, this features the original lineup of Roger on bass, Nick on drums, Rick on keys, and Syd on vocals and guitar. Different than any of the other albums, the only album Syd technically ever appeared on. And if you look at the writing credits, which we'll talk about, if the final cut is Roger's album and A Momentary Lapse of Reason is David's album, this is Syd's album. He has writing credits on every single song alone, except for one that was written by Waters, which we'll talk about, and one that was written by all of them, which we'll talk about. So this is really Syd's album. And if you listen to it, and you've never listened to it, and you don't know about the Syd era, you will be completely surprised by it. If you've listened to The Dark Side and The Wall, but nothing earlier than that, and then you listen to this, you're going to be like, what am I listening to? If you listen to this, and then you listen to all the albums sequentially in order, you will hear the evolution of the sound, and how they went from the Syd sound, more to the Roger sound, then to the Dave sound. This album is perfect. I know that it's a controversial album because a lot of people say this was not Pink Floyd at their best. I disagree. I think that this right here was Pink Floyd at their absolute top. Now, should they have released this album and then stopped? No. Was this a sound that they captured perfectly? Yes. Do I wish that there were more albums that sounded like this? Yes, because even Saucer Full of Secrets, which was released only a year later, Syd wasn't contributing that much by that point. Dave's in the band. It's not really Syd's album. He wrote one song on that album for the most part. He had some guitar parts. I don't know if I'm going to dive into Syd all on here, but I will tell you this. There is a great YouTube video by Joe Rogan, believe it or not. I know. he had Roger Waters on a couple years ago, and there's a wonderful video on YouTube, about 8 minutes long, from Joe Rogan called Roger Waters Tells the Tragic Story of Syd Barrett. It is worth the watch. Go watch it. It's amazing. It's 8 minutes of Roger talking uninterrupted. I know some people might find that hard to stomach, but it's good talking. He's talking about Syd. What happened to Syd Barrett is tragic. I mean, one of the things that I always say about this album, I don't think that the average person with the average brain with a clear view of everything would write music like this. I'm not saying that Syd is, this mentally crazy, disturbed guy, but did he have what probably was schizophrenia? Yes. Did he have a lot of issues due to his LSD and drug intake? Yes. Did that cause him to write songs that most people wouldn't think of writing, or lyrics or riffs that are considered far outside the box? Yes. And that's why I love it so much. His influence on this album is all over. He sings lead on everything. He plays guitar on everything. He wrote basically all the songs. This is his album, and it's amazing. He starts, I think this album, when it came out, was really when the band started to notice his mental health issues, because keep in mind this album came out in 67, Saucerful was 68. It wasn't really that long in between. It was about a year. I think they were released within a month of each other in a year separate. I think this was June or maybe August of 67. I think Saucerful was June of 68 or July. But he, as Roger says, he kept getting just more and more odd, more and more like mental, detached, to the point where literally he was having issues performing on stage. I mean, there's multiple recounts you'll see of him, standing with his back towards the audience, standing on stage, just not playing anything, not strumming, just standing there staring. There's an appearance of them playing, I don't think it was See Emily Play. What was it? It might have been like Power Talk H and like, I don't know. Maybe Take Up Thy Stethoscope. I don't know. But there's an appearance of them playing on not American, something in the U.S. It was one of the first U.S. videos of them, and Syd's in it. And in the interviews, hearing him talk, it's crazy. I love it. I absolutely eat it up. It's awesome. But by 67, 68, he's getting more and more crazy, and the three other members had basically said, okay, well, Syd can't really perform. He's not fit to perform. Let's bring in a guitarist who can play live with us, but we'll keep Syd as a non-performing member. So the idea was, let's bring in this guy, David Gilmour, one of Syd's friends actually. He can play guitar on stage. He can sing a little. Roger says, okay, well, I can sing a little too. Let's keep Syd on as a fifth member who's in the studio only. Unfortunately, that didn't work out that well. The band is a five-piece, and within a very short amount of time, the three, maybe even four of them, were basically going to rehearse. They said, oh, should we go get Syd? And someone said, no, let's not. And that was it. Syd was out of the band. And he he stayed kind of quiet. He went on to release 2 solo albums, I believe in 1969 or 70, and maybe 71 or 72. The Madcap Laughs was the first one, and then Barrett was his second one. They never really charted that high. They're amazing. I mean, they're phenomenal albums. I absolutely love them. After about 1972, he completely disappeared. He was out of the music business, completely. He had been in the music industry maybe 8 years, from the mid-60s to about 72, and he was gone. Of course, he made the very well-known appearance in the studio during the Wish You Were Here recordings. He left, and no one saw him again until, he died in 2006 when he was 60 from, I think it was pancreatic cancer. He lived in Cambridge, which is where he's from. I think he lived with his sister. He spent a lot of time painting and gardening. That was pretty much his life. And that was it. He lived from about 1972 to 2006 with basically no spotlight. He got the spotlight during the Wish You Were Here recording a little, because people were like, oh, Syd Barrett, but he was forgotten. He was gone. And it's a shame because he started this revolution of music that changed everything. But let's talk about it. So we'll start with the UK release version because that's the version that I always go off of. You have 11 tracks on this album. You'll notice 2 on the back. Barrett designed both of them. The UK version does have a different track listing. You'll notice here we've got Syd Barrett listed as lead guitar and vocals, Roger Waters bass and vocals, Rick Wright organ piano, and Nicky Mason as drums. First song on side 1, Astronomie Dominée, written by Barrett. Crazy, cool, insane song. They did it a lot live early on, and it's awesome. I literally don't have anything else to say. Fun fact about that one, Rick Wright actually sings some of the lead vocals. He sings some of the lead vocals actually on this album. In fact, it's not really, cited in here as much, but Rick Wright did do some of the vocals on this album. Roger did too. Track 2 is Lucifer Sam, also written by Barrett. One of my favorite songs on the album, but it's hard to pick. It's got this awesome, surf rock, 60s, almost like a Shangri-La's vibe going on. Very 60s sounding. Could have been a US band, I think, the way that song is written. Third song, Matilda Mother, is also written by Barrett, shocker, is a beautiful, quiet, amazing song. Especially the vocals in this song. I mean, they're beautiful. Barrett's vocals are amazing. Same with Rick Wright, but Barrett especially. Track 4 was Flaming, which, also written by Barrett, is one of the, I think, kookiest songs on the album, but it is so Barrett. Every aspect of Syd Barrett is in that song. The vocals, the music, everything, and it is so amazing to listen to. Song 5 is Power Talk H, which actually is cited to all of them. I misspoke. There are 2 that are cited to all of them. Power Talk H is an interesting one. That's the one, if you don't know, that starts with boom, ch. And it basically goes into just this slowish, free-flowing, jazzy piece with Rick Wright on keys and Nick Mason on drums, with some sound effects, of course, can't forget that. But it's awesome. It's mostly an instrumental, like I said, but it is really cool sounding. I love it. Last song on side 1, another one of my favorites, is Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk, which was the only song on here that is not credited to Barrett. It was written by Waters. It is awesome sounding. Again, fast, good drums, good guitar riff, good lyrics. It sounds awesome. That's literally it. That's all I can say. Go to side 2. We start with the infamous and amazing piece known as Interstellar Overdrive, which was the first time Pink Floyd really dabbled in the long, crazy madness experimental song. This song's about 10 minutes in length. Maybe it's closer to 9. I don't remember. It's 9 to 10. Credited to all of them. And it starts with this amazing riff. And I read a comment on YouTube once that I think sums up this song perfectly. This song must have been what it was like being inside Barrett's head. That's the best way. And this whole album, really. But that song goes from this cool riff to just this crazy sound effect riddled piece. And some people don't like it. Some people say it's just noise. I don't think so. I think it sounds awesome. And I think it is an amazing example of Barrett having, 10 minutes to work with and just going crazy on it. And it sounds freaking cool. Especially at the end, if you don't have the mono version, you won't hear it. But on the stereo version, when the last riff kicks in and they volley the sound back and forth between the speakers, not like this, but at this speed. And if you listen to it on home speakers, it sounds crazy. That immediately goes into The Gnome, which is another Barrett song. I want to tell you a little story about a little man, if I can. Another classic example of Barrett writing the whimsical, kind of crazy, cool little songs. Eating, sleeping, drinking their wine. Little gnomes stay in their homes. Awesome. Then you have Chapter 24, another Barrett one. This song I have one crazy thought about, and that is that this song would have been an excellent end to the album. I think it's got all of the elements of sort of a sad, somber goodbye song, would have been great for that, but it's an amazing song nonetheless. Number 4 on that side, another Barrett contribution, is The Scarecrow, which is another one of my favorites on the album. The clicking sounds, I love it. It's awesome. The Black and Green Scarecrow is sadder than me. It's actually a kind of a sad song, but it's awesome. And there's an awesome video, too, that was filmed, I think, in '68 with it, that is hilarious to watch now. It has Barrett in it, too, but crazy cool song. I love it. And, of course, we finish off the album with Bike, which is another classic Barrett song. The classic example of the weird vocal type that he would use, the weird lyrics, I've got a bike, you can ride it if you like, it's got a basket and bells and things to make it look good. I give it to you if I could, but I borrowed it. You're the kind of girl that fits in with my world, and then it repeats pretty much. But that song is a classic example of Barrett's songwriting at its best. And it ends with just this weird sort of minute-long sound effect group that just ends the album. And that's it. That is Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Now, let's talk about the US release, which, as you can see, features stereo. This is a slightly different, what am I trying to say? This album actually has a slightly altered track listing. You have 9 songs instead of 11, and you have 2 songs completely omitted, 1 that was replaced with another one, and the order is a little bit different. So, side 1, track 1 on this album is See Emily Play, which it was released as a single in the UK, kind of like Arnold Lane. It's not on the UK version of the album. In the US it was released as a single too, but they put it on the album, which is kind of weird because you would think it's like, oh, well, Arnold Lane or something, that's a non-album single. But in the US, they put See Emily Play on, and it took the place of Astronomy Domine, which is odd. Track 2 is Power Talk H, which, interestingly, you will see is spelled differently. Talk H with the H together, versus on here, Talk H. And yes, it's pronounced Power Talk H, not Power Talk. Track 3 is Take Up My Stethoscope and Walk. Again, difference right there. My stethoscope instead of thy stethoscope, even though the technical spelling is thy. That's how the song always has been. Track 4 is Lucifer Sam. Track 5 is Matilda Mother, and that's the end of side 1. Side 2, we have The Scarecrow starting out, then The Gnome, then Chapter 24, and then we finish off the album with Interstellar Overdrive. So yeah, it's a different track listing and it's abbreviated. Bike doesn't show up on here, and Flaming doesn't show up on here. The reason Flaming is not on here is because Flaming in the US was released as a single. It was not released in the UK as a single, so it appears on the album. But Flaming is gone, and Bike is just out. But essentially, they rearranged the front, so instead of having it go Lucifer Sam, Matilda Mother, Power Talk H, Take Up Thy Stethoscope, it's Power Talk H, Take Up Thy Stethoscope, Lucifer Sam, Matilda Mother. So it's almost reversed, because you would have one being Astronomy Domine or See Emily Play, and then Power Talk H on this album is 5, on here it's 2, Take Up Thy Stethoscope is 6 and 3, Lucifer Sam is 2 and 4, and then Matilda Mother is 3 and 5. And then on side 2, Interstellar Overdrive goes to the end, and then you have Chapter 24 is 3, Chapter 24 is 3 on here, The Gnome is 2, The Gnome is 2, and The Scarecrow as 1, and The Scarecrow is 4. So, yeah, I think they reworked it. I think it was just to flow better. I'm not sure. I definitely think Interstellar Overdrive being at the end gives it a different listening experience than in the middle, but still good nonetheless. And of course, with it being in the end, you don't get on the UK version where the last note of Interstellar Overdrive flows into the Gnome. So, different track listings. The UK version was released on Fame, and the US release version was on Tower. So, that's, EMI, Fame, whatever, before Pink Floyd was on Harvest. But, so, yeah, different track listings, which is interesting. They sound, roughly the same. Obviously, if you have the mono, this UK version is not the mono version because it's a slightly later issue. The original ones were mono. and I still need to get one because I have the later UK and I have the original US, but I don't have the original UK, so I'm looking for that. But this, being a sort of second issue, plays one of the smoothest records I've ever played. It sounds like you're listening to it like through, it almost sounds digital is the best way I can explain it. It sounds like not vinyl. Or it's just very, you know, hi-fi, there's no static, nothing. So, yeah, that is the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Also, one fun thing you'll notice too, the name Piper at the Gates of Dawn doesn't appear on the front because at the time it was just Pink Floyd. So, yeah, I don't think that I have anything else to say other than that this album is absolute perfection beginning to end, no matter which version. I always listen to the UK version just because it's got more tracks, but it's amazing. It truly is such a short little snippet era, but my God, is it, you know, revolutionary. And I know there's a lot of people out there who love the Dark Side and who love that era of Pink Floyd, but they don't like the Syd Barrett stuff. I'm the opposite, but not really. Dark Side is great, but my real treasure for me is this stuff. I love the weird, whimsical, you know, kind of weird, bluesy, you know, sort of almost kid-like music of Syd Barrett. A lot of people don't, and that's fine. My dad's one of them. He likes the Dark Side. I've played this album for him front to back, you know, just whenever, and he's like, I don't like it. So, that's fine, but I will tell you this. There are only 3 Pink Floyd albums that I listen to regularly. Not regularly, maybe like once a week, twice a week. This one, my second choice, and my first choice. In fact, I have all 3 of those albums on CD, and I listen to them in my car. So, yeah, needless to say, I'm not listening to Animals in the car, but we already talked about Animals, and I've been watching the comments. A lot of people disagree with me, which is fine. That's what I wanted. So, I think that's going to be it. I think I've said everything I want to say about how awesome this album is. And if you don't like it, if you don't like the Syd Barrett stuff, tell me why. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to know what about the whimsical. I know a lot of people don't like the whimsy stuff, but for me, the Pink Floyd sound. When I think of Pink Floyd, I don't think of Dark Side or The Wall. I think of Syd Barrett. So, that, I think, is going to be it. Thank you all for watching my episode on one of the greatest albums of all time. Look forward to number 2 and 1. Of course, when I do the episode for 2, you're going to know what 1 is, and I don't think I've ever seen a single person who has my number 1 as their number 1. Of course, by this point, there's 2 albums left, so, you know. That's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and look forward to the next episode. Bye-bye.